Good evening. I'm Craig Goodenough, and welcome to my discussion on kink and disability. This evening I have a really good friend, Richard Hubley, and I apologize, Richard, I forgot to ask you the pronunciation of your name, so
No, you're correct.
please don't beat me, or beat me harder next time. And we are going to be discussing kink and disability as indicated by the title. If anybody has any questions, certainly please reach out by Facebook on the Sisters website, and we should be able to answer your questions after this workshop. Good evening, Richard. Would you mind telling me a little bit about yourself?
I live here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I've been in the leather community for 34 years. I am a member of the Ottawa Knights, which is about to celebrate their 45th anniversary. I acquired my disability in 1984 from a motorcycle accident, and so.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that was actually one of my potential questions as to whether or not you were disabled from birth, because that's actually one thing we didn't discuss in the past. So, which is kind of cool. Not that it matters, but okay. As a dominant person, did you have to really come out multiple times to your family as part of the leather community first, or the kink community?
It was easy coming out into the gay community. My mother is a member of PFLAG, so I just confirmed her suspicions. So other than that, coming out as a leather person or a kinkster wasn't hard at all. In my case, I know other people that are openly gay but very closeted when it comes to being kinky.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I was very closeted myself and actually went through a very horrendous experience, which I'll share in another broadcast, but it was not fun with my family. Let's see. So who did you go to learn your skills, or how did you actually get started?
It was through the leather community. Being a member of the Knights, I was mentored. Sir Mark from Toronto helped a great deal. I've learned more in the last 10 years from some of the things because I'm also decided to try to expand some of my repertoire. So I like rope play, suspension and stuff. So in order to do that, you need to be the sub for it. So I'm learning that. I'm still very new to it. I have started into flogging and stuff like this, and being on the receiving end, it's very therapeutic for me. At Claw one year, I was flogged, and my shoulders, for pushing the wheelchair all the time, tighten up, so they get very tense. After this session, it took actually 2 months for them to tighten back up again. So it was very, very energizing to and wonderful to be able to be more relaxed.
So you do start off as more of a sub initially to learn the craft, and then move into the more dominant side, I guess. Then
most people do. You can sometimes tell if they're new into the community, and I'm a dom, I always will be a dom, I will never bottom. Well, even if you don't, if you need to at least try things at least once. You might not like it, but you should understand what, if you're throwing a single tail, you should know what it feels like. If you're throwing a regular flogger or a cat of nine tails or anything like this, you should at least know what the sub is experiencing.
Okay, understood. And of
Mhm.
course, and at some point you'd have to learn what to look for.
Correct. Reading body language and stuff like that, because a lot of it is nonverbal communication. Of course, the sub wants to get beaten, and they say they're fine, but the
Mhm.
body will always tell you the truth. So if they're shaking, or if their hand is shaking uh, while they're processing the pain, it's telling you that although he's saying he's fine, something else is happening. So,
Like if they're having spasms
well, no,
or
not a
muscle spasms.
spasm. It's the way the body's processing the pain.
Okay.
That it's becoming, like, if you use the color system of green's fine, yellow proceed with caution, and red is stop the scene.
Okay. Oh, hang on. I just got a message that just
Yeah,
popped up here.
this
Oh,
meeting's been upgraded.
okay.
Yeah.
um, and of course, it was in print that was way too small. um, okay, and the cat just jumped on the table behind the screen. So
Mhm.
the joys of trying to do things in a live stream.
Mhm.
Okay, hang on. Um, um, Now, a lot's been said over the last couple of years about what happens when you age. Your body changes. Things that you did last year or next year, sorry, last year, last week, may not necessarily be what you want to do um, this week or today. Um, and and since everybody is aging, we kind of have to make accommodation for that. I mean, is it really a disability issue, or is it just aging?
Well, it comes a point that it becomes both. Uh, if you become more and more arthritic, sometimes it's energy issues, things like this. What if you used to be able to play for 2 hours, and uh, you can only last 90 minutes now? You doing a specific play session, you may have to mix it up a little bit so that there's a rest time in between to do different things during the session.
So looking, it's changing the speed, softer, harder.
Well, correct. Or if you start with flogging and then do something else and then go back to the flogging, mix it up with different things. Like
Okay.
some people I know like to be tied up first, so they do an intricate tying first, and then the last 90 minutes and the untying and the aftercare is part of the wind down.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, you brought up an important issue. I mean, if you're tying somebody up, especially with rope,
Mhm.
um, I mean, what's if it's a person with a disability, and something has happened? I mean, how do you work with that? Basically, they need to stop. They need um, to slow down. They need to get out of that. What's the best way to, or the quickest way to handle that?
The quickest way to release someone is having safety scissors with you and cut them out.
Okay, good. So always good to.
There's also a way of tying so that you can lower them very fast and do a quick release system. There are ways of doing it, so it depends on your skill level. But the easiest and safest way to get someone out very fast is the safety scissors.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, okay. For some reason, people in various professions, doctors, therapists, etc., seem to have the understanding that people with disabilities don't really want sex, don't want to initiate sex, but they don't really ask or how can we fight this?
Healthcare providers are using the institutional model of care. We know what's best for you. We know what you should do just to be safe and stuff like this. I come from a background in the disability community and the advocacy of the independent living movement, where the person with the disability has the right and the need to direct their own life as opposed to being told what to do, which means also you, by all means, give them the information that they need to help them, but it's their choice on what to do. Even if it's a mistake, they'll learn from it to move on. You know, if they're going to harm themselves, that's different. But if it's more along the lines of, you can give them the resources are A, B, and C, and they choose B, and you think it should have been A or C, their choice is theirs.
Okay. I know that there was a very important legal ruling a number of years ago that directed the medical professionals that they had to. I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. To be assist with sex
With intimate care.
with intimate care.
Yeah.
That I'm assuming there's guidelines for that as where what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do for safety and whatnot that we should be looking into. Are you aware of those guidelines or such guidelines?
The guidelines are different in each country. Like the U.S. Guidelines are different than here in Canada, so it's a little different. I'm not sure what the exact ruling was back a number of years ago in regards to that. I know the law you're referring to, but I don't remember all the details. It was fairly lengthy, so okay. I'm sure you could find it online.
Yeah, well, we'll look that up and include that with this presentation. If not, I'll add it into a future broadcast. Okay. Why is communication essential, or when you're working with somebody, especially if they're new, before, during, and after
a scene or a play session? But yes, the communication is important because when you first start, when there's no, some people refer to it as negotiation, but you're communicating with what they're interested in, what they are capable of doing if they have restrictions. Like any disability or any impairment, be it bad back, arthritis, or anything like this, can be worked around. So knowing that someone has a concern like that, it can be worked around. So that you need to know that in order to focus away from that area or do things differently, because you can modify any scene to work around issues. I have seen people with bad backs who love to be tied up or suspended, so instead of being suspended by their feet, they're actually suspended by a board, so they're evenly supported.
Okay, and I'm assuming that you would also want to discuss any allergies, especially to latex or anything that would.
Correct. If there's food play involved, like pouring chocolate on people and stuff like this, I happen to have a chocolate allergy, so that would become deadly for me unless they have my EpiPen close by. So it's all about preparation. If they're diabetic, you need to be able to have either juice or a chocolate bar or something, because I'm usually very careful about being around chocolate, but if someone I'm playing with is about to go into a diabetic coma or seizure, by all means, sit over there, eat that. I'll I'll observe you. So, there's that aspect of it. So, and the one thing about diabetes is that if they're starting to go into a diabetic seizure, you can mistake it for being in a sub headspace when they become not euphoric. Uh, when their adrenaline is pumping, they go into what's referred to as a sub headspace, and they feel like they're floating and stuff like that. And you can actually see them going into this transition, but if you don't check on them, it could be the medical issue and not the play.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sounds good. Now, everybody seems to think that when you're playing with somebody, it always has to involve sex or intercourse. Does it really? Is it necessary?
No. Not saying that sex isn't a bonus and things like this, but sometimes, depending on the circumstances, you just want to be tied. You just want a flogging. You just want electrostim, whatever. There's so many things out there, but it's what you're looking for. And you could play with if you go to a party, you could play with one person one way and have something completely different done to you in another place. But it's all about trust and communication. So it's a lot of the people that play at the parties usually have played before, or through negotiation know that they're interested, have never played before with either e-stim or flogging. So you start out lighter. You give them pointers and stuff like this. This is because with the floggers, it's either a thud or a sting. When I first tried it, they all happened to have a horsehair flogger, and although you think horsehair is very smooth, it actually is like barbed wire. There's barbs on it, so it's very scratchy.
Okay.
I hated that when they first tried that on me. I like it now, but they.
Well, it's a sensation. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what it is. It's all about the sensation. So because when you first start playing, you pat the back and stuff like that. It's called leathering the skin. You're bringing a little bit more blood to the surface, and it becomes red. And as more endorphins are released, you can tolerate more and more. So it's all about a journey, about going uphill, downhill, uphill again. So, and there's a very fine line between pleasure and pain, and it's to stay in that gray area, but bring them on the journey with you. Because both the sub and the top want to go on the journey together, because if it's stopped for whatever reason, you stop playing.
Yeah, makes sense. Definitely. That's all the questions I have. Is there anything that you'd like to say in addition to this before we finish that for somebody that maybe is interested in getting started, or
well, with getting back to the aging, one thing when it comes to being either a sub or a dom, specifically the sub, in this particular comment, skin when it ages becomes a little thinner. So you have to keep an eye, because when you're playing with someone, especially flogging, after a while you'll stop, you'll check on them, give them water if they need it, and you'll inspect the skin. But when it's like having a thing of tissue paper folded about 10 times. When you get older, the skin layers are maybe 6. So there's something called micro tearing. So that you have to be careful of, because the skin becomes, that's when people age a little bit better. If they hit their arm, they bruise very much because of micro tears. So it's just being mindful of that.
Okay,
Hmm.
yeah, good to know.
Hmm.
Our new boy that just joined us is albino, and he has three
Hmm.
layers of skin as opposed to five.
Hmm.
So he tends to scratch, bleed, sting a little differently
Hmm.
than what I or my husband would.
Right. Which means you just need to be able to, if you're into a play session, you just need to be aware and have things ready for cases like that, either first aid or him knowing his body. Because, like, with the going back to the discussion part on the the red, the green, the having a safe word or
Mhm.
a safe color, uh, is everyone thinks that it's the sub that can call a a timeout, but actually the dom can also call the timeout because the sub is enjoying what's happening, but might not realize that the top is in distress.
Oh, exactly. Because
So like they're wanting to get beaten more, but you're calling the end of the scene, and they want more and more and more, and you're going, well, no, I'm red. Meaning something's going on. Could be heart, could be arthritis, could be I threw my shoulder out. The warranty's up on me, so. And that's the other thing is even in aging, I have a friend of mine who loves to throw single tails and stuff, but her standing limit is not bad. So she's taken her walker, sat in her walker, and she can throw from a seating level. Also,
okay,
instead of having someone standing at a St. Andrew's cross, I've had people that I've been flogging actually sitting on a chair, uh, backwards on a chair, so they're leaning up against the back of the chair, and so they're at the perfect height for me, or
okay,
a higher stool, so that they're at my level, as opposed to me trying to find a ramp and a level platform.
understood. Yeah, when I'm flogging, I can't do the normal figure eight that most of the DOMs, especially in Toronto, like to use.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine actually gave me a pair of gloves that have the floggers attached to the fingers
Yes. Yep.
instead of having to use my wrist
Mm-hmm.
um, to do that. And I can do the figure eight with that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still fun. So
I find that having the handles with my arthritis and stuff, my wrist locks. So I have what I call finger floggers. There's two bands that hook onto these fingers here, and I can spin them quite easily without injuring my wrist.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
I never thought of that, but it's
Mm-hmm.
probably very
There are things on the market to help with that, but again, it's knowing your body. Yeah.
yeah, understood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I have for now.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get some feedback about other people asking questions, then we'll ask you to come back, or we'll send you an email, and I'll bring up the answers on a future broadcast,
Okay.
assuming there is one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I hope there is. It seems interesting that the sisters are very interested in doing this, and I thank them for that. Thank you for the opportunity.
and thank you for taking the time to join. It's been a busy time for everybody and stress on either side, on both sides. So we want to make sure that I'm glad to have you, and hopefully this is just the beginning of such broadcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, okay, have a good evening and enjoy your night.
Okay. Thank you.